Today we are going to dive straight into the most difficult problem in economics. I am not going to teach you how to become wealthy, because in reality that is the easier part. We are going to talk about how to escape poverty, and that is the true challenge. Most people mistakenly believe that poverty is simply a lack of money. They are wrong. Poverty is not just a number shown in your bank account. It is a ruthless gravitational force, a sophisticatedly designed trap, a closed system whose only goal is to keep you inside, leaving you spinning and exhausted until your very last breath. I call this the physics of poverty. We are going to deconstruct the 5 loops that are chaining down your life. Stay focused, because the final loop I am about to share is the actual engine of eternal prosperity. The only thing that can help you flip this entire board. But before we get there, you must understand the shackles that are binding you right now. Look at rocket science to see the parallel. When a spacecraft attempts to escape the atmosphere, it must fight fiercely against gravity to reach a specific speed threshold. Experts call this escape velocity. Now imagine this. If that rocket has used 99% of the required energy, but has not yet reached that threshold, do you know what the result will be? It does not complete 99% of the journey to the moon. Instead, it stalls, falls freely back to Earth, and explodes into pieces. This is exactly the script that the working class faces every single day. You work yourself to the bone. You pinch every penny. You try to crawl out of the deep hole. But just when you think you have climbed halfway up the wall, gravity hits. A car suddenly breaks down. A sudden illness, or simply the landlord raises the rent. All of these events pull you right back to the bottom of the abyss, simply because you had not yet accumulated enough velocity to fully escape. The reality is even worse. You fall to a position deeper than where you started, because now you are exhausted both financially and mentally. That is why in the physics of poverty, simply working a little bit harder will never work. Linear cumulative efforts only result in zero. To break the pull of this trap, you need an exponential burst of energy. You must realize that this system is programmed to go against you, not because of some conspiracy, but simply because that is the nature of economic mathematics. There are long nights when I sit in the stillness, and I find myself remembering the years of my youth. It was a time when every single penny in my pocket carried its own destiny. I remember those afternoons standing in the generic aisle, hesitating for what felt like forever, just to pick up a cheap box of macaroni and cheese, or a can of soup with the word soup printed plainly on a white background. Even though I knew, well, they had almost no nutritional value, at the age of 20 and full of pride, having to put those items into the cart was a ruthless test of self-respect. But back then, what choice did you have? You did not have a future. You only had the hungry stomach of the right now. Poverty is not just a lack of money. It is a feeling of being out of breath, as if you were running up a long hill, while life is a pickup truck that keeps accelerating and leaving you behind. The grim truth is that poverty is an extremely expensive game. When you have no money, everything you touch costs more. You do not have enough capital to buy a large bag of rice at wholesale, so you have to pay 20% more to buy small individual bags every day. You do not have $100 to buy a pair of quality work boots that can last 5 years. So you are forced to spend $30 on a pair of junk shoes that tear apart after just a few months. And then the next year you have to spend another $30. This is the Vimes boots theory of injustice. The rich man spends $100 once for half a decade, while you spend $150 over that same period, but your feet are always wet and aching. This system has no compassion. It punishes you because you are poor. It piles on late fees and bank overdraft charges, and it slaps predatory interest rates on your head just because they have labeled you as a high risk. In other words, you are trying to run with a weight tied to your leg, while the wealthy are being pushed forward by tailwinds. But here is the deadliest trap of all. Poverty does not just erode your wallet. It invades your brain. When you live in deprivation for too long, your neural structure changes. Constant levels of stress cause your effective IQ to drop by 13 points. Imagine it like trying to make life or death decisions while intoxicated, or without sleep for 24 hours. In that state, you have no mind left to plan for 5 or 10 years ahead. All of your energy is sucked dry just trying to survive the next 10 minutes. You lose your sense of agency, and you begin to fall into a spiral of negative reactions. Low income creates pressure. Pressure leads to poor choices. And those poor choices reinforce the state of poverty. It is a vicious circle designed with no exit. However, I stand here to tell you, every rule has a loophole if you have enough strength to break through. I have been there in those damp and cramped rented rooms with a torn pair of shoes and an exhausted mind. But I chose not to fall. In this analysis, we are going to deconstruct the 5 strings that are tying you down. We will talk about the scarcity tax that is draining your brain power, the dopamine traps that are picking your pockets, and the blindness of linear income. I will show you how to build a financial engine strong enough to reach escape velocity, helping you leave this atmosphere of poverty forever. Once you move past that orbit, everything will become effortless. The resistance vanishes and you can finally truly live. But before we take off, we must survive the ignition phase. Let us start with the first loop, which is the scarcity tax. The biggest mistake of the masses is thinking that just pumping money into the poor is enough. But why do lottery winners with millions of dollars often end up broke after 3 years? Because the problem is not the check. It is the operating system in their heads. Research from Harvard has shown that when you are surrounded by rent bills or car repair costs, your brain functions like a computer with a glitching chip. You are trying to solve complex life problems with a processor stuck in survival mode. You do not see the future because your eyes are busy staring at the disasters of the present. You take out high-interest payday loans because you need cash immediately. You eat cheap and toxic food because it is fast and convenient. You are not stupid. You are just exhausted. And this system is extremely skilled at taking advantage of that exhaustion. Look at the math of poverty through the Vimes boots again. The rich buy durability at a low cost. The poor buy temporary fixes at a high cost. You have to pay more because you lack capital. So how do we break this chain? The answer lies in building a cognitive buffer. Your ultimate financial goal right now is not a house. It is not stocks, and it is not changing your life overnight. Your only goal is to accumulate $1,000 or even $500 and let it sit still in an account that you never touch. This money is not for spending. It is used to buy back your brain. When you have this reserve a car breakdown, it's just a minor annoyance rather than a life-destroying disaster. It allows you to stop borrowing, stop paying the scarcity tax, and start taking back control. That $1,000 is freedom. It helps you recover those 13 lost IQ points. It helps you sleep well, and it allows you to truly lift your head up to see the horizon ahead. Do not try to leap when your foundation is still mud. You must drain that swamp first. You must build a safety buffer. This requires you to live extremely stoically for a few months, sacrificing every small pleasure to buy the liberation of your mind. You are buying yourself back from that ruthless scarcity tax. With all the resilience of a blacksmith reforging his own life, now we will enter the second loop. And this is the part that touches the most painful emotions. I call it the dopamine trap. I am sure you have heard the sarcasm out there. Why is he so poor, yet carrying the latest iPhone? Why buy expensive sneakers or eat out when the fridge at home is empty? It is always easy to judge others from the outside. But let us look deep into the biological mechanism operating beneath the surface. When you are imprisoned in a cycle of poverty, your life is a continuous string of endurance. Your cortisol levels, the stress hormone, are always at a red alert. You feel small and visible and like a failure. In these moments, your brain does not need a lecture on morality. It needs an escape. It craves a victory, even if it is just an illusion. So when you swipe your card for those new shoes or that designer bag, it is not simply shopping. It is a dose of self-gratification. Your brain releases a powerful surge of dopamine for a brief moment. The pain of reality vanishes for a few minutes, and suddenly you feel successful. You feel worthy. Make no mistake, this is not spending money. This is self-medication. You are using consumption as an anesthetic to numb the wounds inflicted by your reality. But here's where the trap lies. The relief is temporary, but the chains of debt are permanent. The dopamine will fade after 20 minutes. But The credit card bill will haunt you for 20 years. This is the fundamental divide between how the rich and the poor view money. The poor see money as a tool to buy instant pleasure. The rich see money as the raw material to buy freedom. When a poor person has $500, their first question is, what can I spend this on to feel good? The wealthy person will ask, how can I make this $500 work for me? We are talking about the difference between assets and liabilities. An asset is something that pumps money into your pocket. A liability is something that pulls money out of your pocket. If you spend money on a luxury bag, that is a liability. It begins to lose value the very second you step out of the store. If you buy a stock, that is an asset. It is silently generating profit for you even while you are fast asleep. Most people struggling in the low income bracket are drowning in liabilities. They dress in fine clothes, use the latest technology, subscribe to every entertainment service. They look wealthy, but in reality, they are burning their own wealth every single day. They are fattening the dopamine monster by starving their own future. So how do you break this loop? You need a systemic purge. You must enter monk mode. This is a phase of radical elimination. It is not forever, but it is a total reboot for your brain for at least the next 6 months. You must cut everything, cancel Netflix, stop eating out, stop shopping for clothes, drink water instead of soda, walk instead of calling a ride. Simplify your life down to the bare minimum of survival. Just food, sleep, and basic transportation. There will be times when it is extremely boring and difficult. Your friends might mock your cheapness, but tell yourself, I am not poor. I am in basic training. When you stop seeking dopamine from spending money, your brain will begin to heal and restructure itself. You will start to find excitement in seeing your bank balance grow. You will feel a high when you save a sum of money. That is a higher class of dopamine. The dopamine of control. Once you realize that you do not need a shiny phone to feel happy, you become extremely dangerous. You become free. Because the system can no longer use flashy things to manipulate you. Congratulations. You have officially broken the addiction. We are moving on to the third loop. One of the most exhausting and persistent traps of all. I call this the linear income trap. Most of us have been brainwashed with a formula for living that seems obvious. Trading time for money. If you want to increase the balance in your account, you are told to work longer hours. Take on a second job. Work extra shifts or head out into the streets to drive for Uber every weekend. However, this formula hides a deadly mathematical error. Your time is a finite resource. A day has exactly 24 hours, and your body is forced to sleep. This means your income is blocked by a mathematical ceiling. A ceiling you can never break through, no matter how much you work yourself to exhaustion. But look at the opposite side. Your cost of living has no limit at all. This is when the silent killer of the working class appears: inflation. Inflation is essentially a direct tax on those who are selling their time. When the money printing machines are running, the price of bread goes up, the price of gas goes up. Everything becomes more expensive. But does your salary increase immediately? Never. Wages are what economists describe as being extremely sticky. Your boss might consider giving you a 3% raise after years of waiting. But you need to understand that by that time, inflation has already eroded 8% of your purchasing power. You are trying to run up an escalator that is going down. And bitterly, the escalator is always moving faster than your legs. You work more frantically. You sacrifice your health. You miss your children's important milestones, only to find that by the end of the year, you are actually poorer than when you started. That is the definition of insanity. You cannot win a rigged game by following its rules. You must change the rules of the game. You must stop selling time and start selling value. How do you perform this revolution? The answer is building a skill stack. Most people try to be the best in one single field. They want to be the best accountant or the top graphic designer. That is an incredibly difficult path because the competition is too fierce. The real secret lies here. Become quite good at 2 or 3 unrelated skills and combine them. Look at Scott Adams, the creator of the Dilbert comic strip. He was not the most talented artist. nor was he the funniest writer or the most experienced businessman, but he was good at all three. When he mixed them together, he became unique and unbeatable. For a low-income worker, this is a life-changing tactic. Do not waste your energy on a second manual job like flipping burgers. That is just selling your labor for cheap. Use your free time to equip yourself with a complementary skill. If you are a construction worker, learn the art of sales. Now you are no longer the man holding the shovel. You are a contractor with the ability to close deals. If you are a waiter, study the technique of copywriting. Now, you are not just bringing food to the table. You are someone who can design a menu that makes customers crave the most profitable dishes. You must become a multifunctional machine through skill accumulation. When your income is no longer tied to the number of hours you work, you become harder to replace than ever before. You become a valuable asset instead of a mass market commodity. This market only pays for rarity. It does not pay for fatigue or mere effort. If your job can be replaced by a child or a robot within a week, you will always be on the poverty list. You must build a fortress to protect your income, and that fortress is nothing other than the unique skill stack you possess. Now we enter the fourth loop, and this is the chain that is the hardest to break. I call it social gravity. There is an immutable law that goes like this. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If your 5 closest friends are all broke, you will be the 6th. If those 5 people spend all day complaining about the economy, you will certainly be the 6th as well. If the people around you do not have a single ounce of ambition, you will soon become their next carbon copy, because humans are innate mimicking machines. Our brains possess something called mirror neurons. They cause us to unconsciously copy the behaviors, the language, and even the mindset of those beside us. If you are struggling to escape the swamp of poverty, but are surrounded by people who have already given up, you are fighting a hopeless battle. This leads us to the crab bucket effect. If you put 1 crab in a bucket, it can easily crawl out. But if you put 10 crabs in there and 1 tries to escape, it will never get out. The other 9 will immediately grab its legs and pull it back to the bottom. They do not do this because they are evil, but because your success makes them feel insecure. Your escape accidentally highlights their imprisonment. When you start disciplining yourself like a monk, when you start pinching every penny to save and learning new skills, your old friends will notice. But they will not stand there and applaud you. They will attack you. They will say, "Why work so hard? Just relax." They will mock you. "Do you think you are better than us? This game is rigged. Why waste your effort?" This is the groaning sound of social gravity. It is the sound of the crabs pulling you back into the mud. If you choose to listen to them, you will be stuck in that bucket forever. You must realize that poverty is often accompanied by a culture of victimhood, the narrative that the government is evil. The rich are wicked, and I am just unlucky. These stories might comfort your self-esteem. They might release you from personal responsibility. But the price you pay is that they keep you poor forever. So how do you break this cycle? You must practice ruthless isolation. I am not saying you should treat your family or childhood friends badly, but you must protect your mind at all costs. You cannot spend 3 hours a day listening to that toxic talk. Sitting and listening to someone complain about life is an act of self-poisoning. You need to find a new tribe. You might protest, but Warren, I am poor. Wealthy people do not want to associate with me. You cannot just walk into an elite club, but you are living in the age of the internet where you have access to virtual mentors. You can spend time with Charlie Munger, converse with Einstein, or immerse yourself in the thinking of the greatest minds in history. Read their books, watch their interviews, listen to their podcasts, and let those voices echo in your head. Filter out the noisy clutter around you. When you read the biography of a billionaire, you are essentially downloading their operating system into your brain. You are hacking your mirror neurons. To choose to be the average of the authors you read, rather than the neighbors who are complaining, this is how you escape the gravitational pull of the zip code where you were born. You are building a new neighborhood right inside your mind. Thank you for staying with me until these very last moments. I suspect that you are someone with a quiet depth of experience. and a profound perspective on the flow of life at an age where the noise outside no longer stirs us. When we begin to value stillness more than applause, we realize that the greatest value of a man does not lie in what he flaunts, but in his self-mastery and what he leaves behind for the next generation. Perhaps you are like me, understanding that life is not a sprint, but a persistent journey of patience and quiet, right choices. It is that very composure of yours that has brought us to the fifth loop, the true engine of prosperity. I call it the accumulation gap. Albert Einstein once remarked that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who does not pays it with his entire life. If you are feeling besieged within the spiral of poverty, it is very likely you are standing on the wrong side of this equation. You are paying compound interest to the system. Credit card debts with 20% interest rates, car loans, student loans, those numbers are working against you. Every morning you wake up a little poorer than the night before. Even if you did not spend a single cent, you are struggling to row upstream, but the current is always stronger than your arms. Meanwhile, the wealthy stand on the other side of the battle lines. They are enjoying the forward thrust of compound interest through S&P 500 index funds, real estate, and businesses. Every day they wake up wealthier than the night before, even if they spent the whole day sleeping. This is the snowball effect. To escape the low income bracket, you must stop being the one who pays interest and start being the one who collects it. You must cross that line through 3 stages of liberation. Stage 1, survival. This is the time you must stop the financial bleeding, cut your spending to the absolute minimum. Use every penny saved to destroy high interest debts. You must kill the vampire that is silently sucking your blood every night. Stage 2, accumulation. This is when you begin to own income generating assets. Just start with a small amount every day. Invest in a low-cost index fund. Ignore the noise out there. Disregard the flashy temporary trends. You are minting your own snowball. At first it will look tiny, perhaps even pathetic, but you must have absolute faith in the mathematics. Stage 3, freedom. This is when your wealth releases its power. It generates enough cash flow to cover your basic survival needs. This is escape velocity. The moment this happens, you have officially broken the pull of gravity. You no longer have to sell your time just to exist. You have choice. You have dignity. Looking back at the entire vicious cycle we have traveled through, from the scarcity tax and dopamine traps to linear income and social gravity, these are the shackles chaining your feet. But remember this well, though these chains are made of metal, they were forged within the mind. The cage door is actually always open. The system and your fears want you to stay still. But now you have the map in your hands. The only thing you need is the courage to walk out. As I sit here analyzing these things, I wonder if you unintentionally saw the shadow of someone familiar in these words. Or perhaps in a certain moment, you caught a glimpse of your own younger self. The version of you that once struggled within these loops, full of passion but lacking a map. If these insights helped you see something, no matter how small, please leave a mark below. Your empathy is not just a comment. It could be a hand reached out to those who are also seeking their own escape velocity. Perhaps the most sincere thing is helping someone realize that they are not alone in this battle against gravity. Thank you for watching.